Hey, everybody, I'm Todd Wyant, and welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast. You're invited to join my mission to embrace and share the innovations transforming the AEC, MEP, and manufacturing industries. My guest today has had a distinguished career as a BIM manager at firms like Southland Industries and Murray Company. He's currently the CTO at ICT Tracker and the MEP National Chairman for AGC BIM Forum MEP Group. David Francis is a construction technologist who shows contractors how to dramatically improve efficiency and profits. Welcome to the show, David.
Hey, thanks for today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you go about getting contractors to increase efficiency?
Well, it's always in little steps. There is no big magic bullet. And usually it's amazing what simple things, just even start with this basic folder structure and information. I mean, that's a real big thing that, we buy computers like candy, hand people, and then no one's have infrastructure from the play and share. So that alone is usually that's usually the place I start when I get to a company. We sit and talk and say, okay, how are you structured? Let's start there. So we're all talking. I mean, the biggest thing that frustrates me is kind of siloed information. Here's this department, here's this department, here's this department. They're all doing their own thing. So that takes a little break down those barriers, but that's where you start. And then there's obviously so many levels of efficiency you can buy in technology, but it's not only just technology. It's user interface and just dealing with people. I mean, it's a lot of simple things that aren't expensive.
Yeah. So, David, what are some of the first things that contractors can do to help increase efficiency?
I think, a lot of these basic efficiency, you just start with your inner infrastructure. When you start talking about technology, the first thing you go is you look at folders and files and naming. Does everyone use the same naming, the same folders? I mean, that's half the battle. Just breaking down silos so everyone talks and plays together. I think that's a lot of it. I think the other options or opportunities there, obviously with technology, it is, once you get everyone playing together, now you start seeing if you can share and integrate softwares together.
Yeah, interesting. So going along technology, it used to change, maybe every couple of years. Now it seems at least every 6 months, if not faster, it's changing. How do you combat that and keep up with technology?
That's always a struggle. I don't care what department you're in, and you're always afraid. I think a lot of people are afraid to make a move because technology is changing, but you have to make some level of commitment to move along. And it doesn't matter what you do, there's a learning curve on everything. So when you invest in technology, you're going to take that dip down before it dips up. And I think that's really one of the biggest challenges a lot of people don't really acknowledge there. But I don't have a magic answer for that one. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. And even back when we were using little 286 computers, we were struggling with technology. So I don't think I think everyone just, you have to go with kind of your gut feeling. And it's really, once you get the buy-in from upper management, that's half the battle. Because now you have everyone kind of pushing along the same technology versus you always have the doubters of people pushing back.
Yeah. The interesting nugget that I heard you say there is patience, that you got to have patience to let it kind of play out. Don't just adopt a new technology and be like, oh, we adopted it. Everything's fixed now. It takes time there.
Yeah. Well, my biggest complaint is everyone always blames the software. And I said, it's usually never the software. It's usually the implementation process. You didn't allow it time. You didn't put champions in place to take care of it. Then nothing comes out of the box stock ready to go. You have to invest time customizing it, tweaking it. Software manufacturers will try and tell you that it's good to go and they'll get you up and going in a week. And I go, I haven't seen anything yet. I mean, our software, believe it or not, it's one of our hallmarks is the fact that we can come up pretty quickly, but we keep it real simple. That's one of the goals. That was one of my lessons learned when we started this company. It had to be that way. But I think patience is a real big thing because everyone wants to see the ROI, see what's the magic. That just takes time.
Yeah. So if you can put on your BIM manager hat for me, how should a BIM manager go about evaluating new technologies and workflows? And then maybe what are some of the determining factors for that successful implementation?
Well, I think it also depends. Is it a BIM tool? Is it departmental or is it company wide? So you kind of have to look at it, and do you have the right people looking at it with you? And a lot of companies defer to their BIM manager, figure he's the technology guy.
Yeah.
But now your technology guy is telling the rest of the company how to do their business, where I want my operations manager involved. I want my superintendents involved. I want people who are actually going to be using and taking advantage of technology down the road in there. My fabrication guy, here's the data we put out. So I think that's part of it. You need to have, you have to have people to help you evaluate it. Obviously you're going to see the impact in your department, and that's usually how most guys look a little short sighted and just see how it impacts them and don't realize how it impacts the whole company. So I think that's a bigger factor that maybe some BIM managers are short sighted. I know I've been guilty of it. You get caught up on this new cool tool and you're sure it's going to solve the world's problems, but at the end of the day, maybe it was good for your department, but it wasn't good for the rest of the company. So you really need to, that's the biggest lesson learned on a lot of the stuff I've learned is you have to look outside your department and think company-wide, not department-wide.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier too about breaking down silos for efficiency. If you don't know what is going on in the rest of the company, how are you supposed to get more efficient?
Yeah, that's really what it's all about at the end of the day, and I've worked for 3 or 4 pretty large mechanical contractors, and the larger you are, the tougher it is, because you do have these kind of little kingdoms you deal with. And that's the hard part. But at the end of the day, it's what's best for the company. At the end of the day, it's a business, and a lot of people kind of forget that. You have to keep in mind it's all about business and profits. That's why they're here, and it's your livelihood. So if you sit and hang on to it and don't share with people, most likely you're going to die on the vine. I've seen it happen too many times with guys who didn't share, didn't play well together. And, your job is to be continually mentoring people. And as I always told my guys, your job is to train your replacement. And I know that kind of freaks people out, but it's really, I've been training my replacement as long as I've been doing this. And I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of guys who have mentored me along the way. And you just keep on sharing. The funny thing, when you share information, you learn things because now you get perspective. And I think that's a real big thing that a lot of people forget. Some people kind of hoard the technology, like this is why they keep me around. I'm the only guy who knows how to do it. But unfortunately, you're hurting the company, and ultimately, you're probably hurting yourself. Everyone's kind of gets, there's karma, and people get kind of wise to people that aren't good team players.
Yeah, and I think getting that perspective is super important. That's one of my favorite aspects of doing this podcast is getting to talk with different people and seeing different points of views on technology and the workflows out there, because everybody comes at it from a different angle. So you get little tidbits that in every single conversation they're like, oh, okay.
Well, we
live
in such an amazing generation of sharing information and data, which, I started, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have that stuff. I'd sit at lunch and read DOS manuals, and,
that sounds like an exciting lunch.
Yeah, exactly. I sure could have used a YouTube years ago, because now that I'm training myself on Power BI and other softwares, and every time I have a question, I just hop in there and I can always find a reference that someone's already had the problem I've had. And, that's what, anyone that says they're having a struggle learning, I get frustrated with. And, my guys used to take lunch, and at lunch, everyone hops on the internet and kind of spends time looking at stuff. I said, if you just took 30 minutes a week and watched a video that was a training video on something, and there's a ton of them out there, you start thinking about that. Here's 30 minutes a week there. You're investing 26 hours a year in your training. Just a half hour a day, you're going to blow, eating your lunch anyway. So why not watch a video that's something to do with your CAD software or some piece of technology you'd like to learn about?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Being intentional with your time there.
Yeah.
So in this current disruption that we're all going through, of most people, going from working from home and social distancing and all that stuff, what are some technologies and workflows you feel could help BIM departments excel in this current environment?
Well, I know the last company I was at, Murray Company, we were playing with the desktop as a solution, and that allows people to move around and hop in anywhere and log in and take your environment with you, make your environment virtual. And so there's a lot of IT departments looking at it. The CAD department's always struggled with it because CAD people use so many mouse movements. There's a little lag there, and so some guys get frustrated with it. So I know some companies have gone that way, and you start comparing the impact of your IT department and maintaining all the different things that come along with keeping your people productive. Guy's machine goes down, we're happy it's up, and we have a backup machine. We're happy we got them up and going in a few hours. But if you're running a virtual desktop, all of a sudden it's not a few hours, it's no big deal. He just hops on another machine, logs in, he's back in business. You know, so there's that kind of technology out there. You know, obviously like we're doing here, Zoom meetings, you know, when you know, we started doing everything with Skype a few years ago. So the guys were communicating with that. I mean, one of the standards, you know, everyone got a computer, we standardized. So everyone got a headset with a computer. So that way, they can listen on calls for, you know, virtual meetings for coordination, but also they talk with each other, you know? So, I mean, there's just some simple tools that everyone should have. And, you know, these headsets are so inexpensive these days. It's, you know, it's like, here's your mouse, keyboard, and here's your desk, here's your headset, here's your other piece of equipment everyone should have.
Right. Yeah. What about some technologies and workflows to help departments address the skilled labor shortage that's so prevalent? All this is only going to make it even more so.
Yeah, well, you know, because we looked at it differently than a lot of people, and because we had a hierarchy of people, how we'd set it up. So, you know, I kind of looked at our office as kind of the virtual field. We had superintendents, we had general foremen, we had foremen, all the way down to apprentices, you know, and you had people get more task oriented versus, you know, when I started, you did everything. When you were a detailer, you brought in the drawings, you cleaned them up, you did the background, you set your title blocks, you did all that stuff. Well, that's kind of mundane tasks that your time as a detailer is more, what's the word I want to say? It's precious at this point. So to have you sitting around playing around backgrounds and stuff like that, it doesn't make sense. And also someone has to learn, and that's how you learn. You have people start doing little things. And so someone starts doing backgrounds, someone starts doing spooling, they start understanding. I mean, that's how I started as a draftsman. I was doing spool sheets for a guy. He would sit there and he'd give me this really rough spool sheet, and I was a draftsman. I'd make it pretty so it could read it in the shop. And that's why I started learning about fittings and stuff like that. And I think that's how you have that trickle down teaching mentality. And then, you know, this person gets this, you just keep on feeding them more and more as they learn. But, you know, everyone's just desperate for technology right now. And I think, or not technology, but personnel. I think the other piece is just QC. You know, we had people set up who just QC'd all the drawings, and that helped get at least a standardized drawing, but also help point out issues to feedback to the guys. The other things that we did is we did a monthly meeting. I would take all the emails of everything I received, and everything that was good, bad, or ugly, we'd air it out. And, you know, obviously we wouldn't throw anyone under the bus, but we'd point out, hey, we're on a job, we saw this, we had an issue, something you guys should all pay attention to. Or, you know, we did, you know, plumbing and piping, and at the end there, we were doing sheet metal. So in my previous contractor, when you're a three-trade contractor, the other thing is, it's amazing things that one trade does that another trade doesn't realize could help them. You know, so it's kind of interesting getting that crossover there, and then you know, try and get your engineers in there, get your design team on there, because, you know, they're at the point there where, especially if you're a design build contractor, you're not putting out dumb engineering drawings anymore. You're putting out drawings that's a lot higher expectation. You know, they look for an LD 350 drawing versus a 300. So I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. It's just how you're smart with your manpower. And you know, everyone wants to go out and, you know, hire the hot shot. And I go, yeah, hot shots are rare and they're expensive. He said, you're better off cultivating from within, find an older journeyman or foreman that wants to come in the office. You know, they know the field, you can train them. It's easier to teach someone CAD than it is to teach someone the field. That's, you know, it sounds brutal, but it's unfortunate truth on it. And when you have guys like in there, they actually trickle off experience to other people, which is good too. So you have to look at it from a lot of different angles too. You're cultivating, you know, you're cultivating a garden there. It's really what you're doing when you're managing a department. Yeah,
no, that's super interesting. So how should a BIM department look at the transition to Revit?
Well, I think everyone's at different levels based on what the requirements are. Usually if you have a design department, you're getting pushed into Revit faster because your design team got pushed into Revit. I think the transition to Revit, you're going to have to jump in, you know, and usually you pick that basic low-end project. The other thing, you got to get outside support, get training, you know, you spend good money, you know, with someone who's selling you your software, they provide support. That's what they do. That's part of their job. So get your people trained, you know, don't assume they're going to osmosis software, because that just makes it worse. And Sometimes you might have to run train, 4 or 5 at a time, or however whatever your grouping are. But there's also a lot of setup goes to it. You don't just roll out a software. I mean, I know the one company when we did Revit, it took quite a while, and they did a great job taking it from a more corporate look at it to set up our template. Just all the simple things you took for granted, that you've been using for years in maybe an AutoCAD scenario, to go to Revit, you kind of have to do the same thing over in Revit, but Revit's a different environment, and it's better because it's actually a more structured environment. You can actually lock people out from changing things and get rid of some of the bad habits they have. So you need to kind of embrace some of the good things, and they're continually develop. Every year it gets better. The problem is, unfortunately, we have to wait 18 months till the architect switches over, and then the rest of everyone can hop on board and take advantage of technologies. The MEPs have been traditionally behind the curve because we're waiting for 2020 rolls out, and all of a sudden that's great, but we're still on jobs with 2018 and 2017. So all these cool tools are there we don't get to use yet. But it also buys you some time to examine those tools and see how they fit in your infrastructure.
Yeah, it gives you kind of the opportunity for an on-ramp to look at that and go, okay, this is how it maps in with our environment. So by the time you're ready, you, in theory, should be able to hit the ground running a little bit harder.
Yeah, and now there's a lot of good third-party softwares out there. Obviously, Applied, you've got the Evolve system out there. There's other third-party softwares that help you out, but the advantage the Evolve system brings out that I saw is the fact that if you're already a fabrication company, here's a software that helps you to stay in fabrication and take advantage of what you have. So there's pluses and minuses to everything. But when you're looking at software and looking for applications, instead of making this big, holy smokes, we're starting from scratch thing, why not take what you have and just integrate it into a new interface?
Yeah. What do you think are some habits outside of maybe that training that departments can put in place to put them in a better position for success in transitioning to Revit?
Well, ultimately, it still comes down to training. You obviously have to pick your right people and the right project to do it. You need to identify, and there's obviously going to be some projects that are going to lend themselves better to it. You don't roll it out and do a hospital on Revit for your first time, because that'd be pretty brutal adventure. But you're going to take baby steps. You're going to learn, and you're going to run through your whole cycle, because you have to figure out how it works all the way through. It's not just the fact you took it from design to detailing. Okay, great, you're not cleaning up backgrounds anymore. You're using your total station system. You're using, your fabrication. There's all these other technologies that hop on top of this. You have to make sure it integrates. And there's a lot of different solutions out there for that too. You just have to take a look and see what best fits your solution. Obviously it just depends. There's a lot of people you can talk to. I mean, that's the other thing, is get on LinkedIn and reach out to some of these people. There's a lot of people talking about their experiences, and they'll tell you the good, bads, and uglies, and that's the beauty of the environment today, is actually you can share information that you couldn't share before, and learn that, here's a guy on the other side of the country who's going through the exact same scenario you are, and you can have a conversation with him and go, wow, okay, that's cool. I didn't know about that. And, it's just this word of mouth thing. That's how, when, I started going to the AGC BIM forum years ago because of that, because it was just, here this area to sit and talk to people and learn other technologies and how people are doing it. Obviously, the MEP Force show, if you're an MEP contractor, you probably need to be attending that, even if you're not using some of these tools. Just all the contractors will show up. You can learn a lot, because there's other things that are talked about besides the fabrication tools. There's other things that are discussed there. So, I think that's the opportunity you have to look for, is get a hold of people that have information, and they're, like I said, nowadays everyone's willing to share. A lot of videos out there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things about the MEP industry that's unique to the MEP industry, is that it seems like everybody's very willing to talk about what is going on, talk about hurdles that they are trying to overcome and ones that they have overcome, and they're willing to share that information. That's really cool that you don't get in a lot of industries.
Well, it's kind of funny. Whenever you hire a new person, the first thing you do is you try and learn what they had at other companies. That's one thing you look at. And then I used to ask people, they say, well, aren't you worried about the people stealing our software and technology? I said, I'll be honest with you. I said, to take our technology we developed and go input it in someone else's technology, it's probably more hassle than it's worth. Okay. I mean, there's probably little cool tools and tricks you learn, but at the end of the day, I said, I said, that's not going to bankrupt us. Okay. This isn't, there's nothing here we had that was just really amazing magic. Everyone thinks it is. I said, the more you get around and talk to people, every company's got their own little magic they're doing. And if you talk to them, you learn from it and see if you can, put it into integrate it in your solution to improve your process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So all the things you've learned, what's kind of the main advice that you would give to a BIM manager?
Learn your people. It's an HR business. I think the biggest thing when you become a manager, especially BIM managers, you've kind of grown up being the tech guy. And the other problem with being the tech guy is things came pretty easy to you and you learned it. That's kind of why you became that tech guy, and you had this thirst and passion for it. Well, you have some people that aren't as fast, don't have the passion, so you have to have the patience. It's the same thing like in the field while you're forming and journeyman apprentices. Okay, you have to teach people and understand that not everyone's going to pick up that fast. But I think the biggest eye-opening thing for me especially, and I'm sure most guys see it, is when all of a sudden you're dealing with people and personalities, and when you have to lay someone off, it's a little different. It's a little bit of a life-changing event you're going through, and you better make sure why you're laying someone off. But in the same respect, when you keep on people on board, are they the right person? As they've said, is that the right person, the right seat of the bus? Mm-hmm. You need to constantly be looking at your department and identifying your people, your personalities, your strengths, your weaknesses. And it's a big chess game. It really is. I always had my guys keep what we call a totem pole, who was top and who was bottom, because I said, this is a business where it's not uncommon for us to have a slowdown and have to lay people off. So you better make sure you know who your strengths and weaknesses are. And we'd sit and talk about, if they're weak, why are they weak, and what can we do to improve them and kick them up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've seen on LinkedIn that you have a video series that I believe is called Virtual Manager 101 to pass some knowledge on to the next generation there. Why do you feel it's important to share that knowledge?
Well, just kind of what we were just talking about. I've been doing this long enough, and I've sat through, I've been in, the BIM manager seat for quite a few departments. I've run a fab shop. I ran a fab shop for a few years, and I've got experience with multiple trades and multiple people, unions and non-unions, all the different things, just management versus, blue collar, white collar. There's all these little pieces there. And I just thought it'd be kind of good to just add little pieces. I made a kind of list of kind of lessons learned and try to put it all in bite-sized minute, 2 minute pieces that people could kind of learn from, and I've always, like I said, I just been lucky to work with just really top-notch people who were really excellent mentors. And part of the reason I found out later they were good mentors to me is because I listened to them. They wanted, they appreciated the fact that I wanted to learn from them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to tell anyone how to do their job. Everyone's going to make their own piece on how they do the business. But, I'm just trying to share my lessons learned. I've been doing this long enough, doing enough. I've worked for multiple companies. A lot of people work for one company only, and they don't have any perspective. I've worked for, I started out with a small mechanical which I thought was the big deal. And then I went to a large mechanical and learned about hierarchy and people. And, and then I went to another large mechanical, and I made 5 stops along the way. And so I saw a lot of different perspective, people, personalities. And I think that's really the key that some people don't see, understand when they get in their little silo of their company and don't realize that there's other perspective out there. Mm-hmm. And every company I came to, I usually try to bring that perspective, and then trying to, you walk in, you try and warm up to the people there and learn about your people. So I just thought it'd be kind of good to sit down and take a little time here and just, like I said, make some bite-sized pieces. I think each one's like 90 seconds to 2 minutes. I take a topic, I just try and put my take on it, what my lessons learned are, and hopefully some people are get some information from it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I love the knowledge transfer too, because like we said earlier, everybody has this a different shade of perspective on whatever topic you're looking at. And so I think to get that from somebody who's had such a great experience in that area, that's super valuable. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that I think my perspective is a little different, because you have to remember, I came from the time where, I was BIM before BIM was BIM. Okay. So there was no BIM when we started. We didn't get 3D backgrounds. we started doing 2D drawings in the mid 80s. We switched to 3D in the late 80s because we could do pipe fabrication from it. And then we had a little 3D software we bought to draw architectural walls and stuff when we needed it. But you know, I'm probably a little more conservative than some people just because I've been burnt, and that's how you get learned. You learn from doing these things, and part of my thing is help my people is trying to teach them what I've learned. I want to hear what you're saying. I want the input. I want perspective. You know, as a manager, you have to be looking for perspective. If you're one of these guys that think you're God's gift and you know it all, then you've already failed. You're not gonna succeed. You've got this whole, whether you have 5 guys or 50 guys, you have this whole wealth of information out there. All these people, they're eager to learn, and they're little test beds. You got a whole beta department. Why not learn from all your little betas out there? What's working, what's not working, and you're continually tweaking it and trying to improve the process. I think it's just a nonstop process.
Yeah, but that takes some humility though, to be able to kind of check that ego at the door and be like, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I have experts on my team for a reason.
Yeah, well, construction's full of a few type A personalities. So yeah, and you know, I've been in some heated conversations in my career, but you know, at the end of the day, you should be doing what's best for the company, you know, and if someone has that singular attitude and they think they're better than the rest of the company, like I said, those are guys I used to call them cowboys, you know, and said, you know, you're on the team or you're not on the team. If you're not on the team, I don't care if you're a rock star. I said, you don't fit, because if you're gone for a week and we spend a whole week lost in space because we can't figure out how you do your stuff, you're not a team player. And I unfortunately had to let go of a few guys I thought were really just top-notch guys, but they just wouldn't come around. They just, they thought what we were doing was wrong and they didn't want to do it that way. This is how I've always done it. I go, then you should go do it in some other company, because obviously it's not going to work here.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you come up with the idea for ICT Tracker?
Well, actually, ICT Tracker is kind of a combination of a brainchild. My co-founder, Tim Dunk, and I were kind of chatting a couple of years ago, and Tim had recently sold his Autodesk company, and he was looking for something new, and he had said, you know, Dave, I think AR is the next hot thing. He says, you know, and I shot back to him. I said, here's my problem with AR. I said, if you want me to just stare at something and think it brings me value, I'm not seeing it. Okay. I said, you know, I want something a little more. And we started talking some more about it, and he said, well, think about it, you know. And I've actually did this with Navisworks, and I've been trying to do it for the last 10 years. I could actually do field installation productivity tracking with Navisworks, but it wasn't user friendly. You know, the way detailers and engineers draw things by layer, the way fields see it, it's more by phasing. So, you know, so for guys to hop in these models, fly around, turn things on and off, identify what this layer is, you know, I think that's where it really kind of, it was just failing. I couldn't make it user friendly enough for the guys. So, you know, roll up a couple of years later, Tim and I were talking, we started talking about this. I said, well, what if you could look up and see the element there in the field and then select it and identify its status? You know, and now I can do productivity tracking there based on that. So that's kind of how the whole thing started. We put out what they call an MVP, a minimal viable product. We went through that whole accelerated startup process and learned a lot. And then as we got customers on board, got more customer feedback and continually refined the product there. So we originally were 100% AR only software, and we learned from it. I said, well, sometimes AR doesn't work, it doesn't apply, because AR is kind of limiting on your view. So we're the only AR software I know out there that actually lets you do also what we call a free flight or model view. So you can see it in AR, or you can flip over instantly and free flight the model and go to a spot and select elements and change status. So you can do bulk selection. We also condition the models. We don't bring in a model box stock. Anyone that says they can bring a model in box stock and use it, there's no errors, no issues, I'm gonna have to call BS on that one, because I've seen enough models for my career. There's the human factor. You know, everyone tries their best, but there's certain things. And so we actually have a little set up a routine we use that we condition the models before they use it. So we break it out more by phasing, so the people, when they go to use it, they see only the elements they need to see there and don't have to filter things on and off. We kind of filter out things that don't really bring value, or AR struggles a little bit with heavy vector model. We clean up the vectors in it. So we do the conditioning on it. So there's those other pieces that we do. It's just a big continual thing. And then the real thing is it's all at the end of the day about the data. That's really what you're going. I mean, we all spend all this money on BIM, and we rarely scratch the eye in BIM. We all like looking at pretty pictures, but no one's really leveraging the data.
Yeah.
And so our main thing was making it quick and easy for you to get the data and turn it over to reporting. So you can do visual analog reporting. So whether you want to do it in Excel, we can do Power BI, we can bring it back to Navisworks, we can bring it to ERP. We're integrated with Procore right now. So it's really getting that information back, because typically a lot of companies don't do information, they don't do productivity tracking because it's time consuming. Some guys got to mark it up, and then someone has to, they kind of look at it. But if you ever have, we used to have project engineers who just sit and manually take it all off, put it in a spreadsheet, and then take that data and plug it in somewhere so they can kind of see what it is. But that takes a few days to a week. So that data is old. So our main thing is the fact that once you select the elements in the model and you go ahead and request a report, you get a report in 2 minutes. Now you can take that data, and we've got it set where you can drop it in a folder and do a refresh in Power BI. And within 5 minutes, you can find exactly what's going on in your job.
Wow.
So on Friday afternoon, you're looking at something. Monday morning, you walk to the meeting and you know exactly what the issues are and say, man, you guys are killing it. We can identify productivity. We can identify, any type of metric. Doesn't matter the material or type. So that's kind of how it really cultivated. The more we deal with people, the more we deal with customers, and they keep challenging us. That's great, and we've always had the ability to track hours, and we have some customers tracking hours with the software, and we're able to take that and we can put we can actually put a crew rate to it. So now all of a sudden you can start getting cost per pound, cost per foot, cost per piece, cost per linear foot, cost per square foot, cost per cubic yard. So if you ask any project manager, how long does it take to get this data? It's something they usually don't get in a timely fashion. Mm-hmm. And now they know exactly what's going on versus some guy floating around with a piece of paper or PDF trying to get this data back to you. So that's really what we've done. The rule was, and from my experience, it had to be simple to use, it had to be easy, because I just knew from field guys, they don't have time for this crap. They need something that's efficient and simple. Had to be easy to implement. I mean, I've dealt with enough softwares that I bought that, geez, it takes a while. They said they were easy to implement. They're not, and it's just got to be efficient. And that's the three things that have been the mantra of our company since we started it. So I think we've done a good job doing it, and it continues to improve. We still see more opportunities, and as we get more feedback from customers, we just go, that's a great idea. I didn't think about that. And like you talk about, that's what we're looking for, perspective. Mm-hmm. So that's how we got here.
That's awesome. I love that flexibility that you guys have when you hear something from a customer that you're able to be humble enough to hear that perspective and then go, okay, yeah, let's bring that in. That's a great idea.
That's how you improve. It's the only way. We think we know how we want it used, but until they get out in the field, usually they go, why doesn't it do that? Or I never thought about that. That's a pretty interesting thought idea. So the way we're grouping models now is different than when we started, and just strategies. It's pretty fascinating what we've learned. And we partnered up with iConstruct, and iConstruct builds a really outstanding tool for cleaning up Navis models, and we for them to really streamline the process. So we actually sell iConstruct as part of our package now too, because it's a great tool. I've been using it for years for clash detection, but it had some other tools that I was using at the time. But right now, what would take someone to manually condition a model, this thing does it in a couple minutes now. And that was the other thing people were concerned about. It's like, oh, here's another total station that's going to take my guys all this time to prep these models. No. We've streamlined that. We understand that burden. We're not putting an extra burden on you. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure the data is in the right condition so when the field uses it. And the funny thing is it actually helps QC the models. So we've identified some issues that maybe from detailing that they need to fix, and it'll help identify reporting issues. That's a real big thing for them. It's just like going, how can you be reporting on this stuff where I've got one level of stuff, yet it's reporting they're on 6 different levels. So there's something wrong with some of your element identifications there.
Interesting. Well, how do people find out more information on ICT Tracker?
Well, the best way is obviously we're on the web there. So www.icttracker.com. And then also you can go on YouTube. We've got a bunch of videos on YouTube. You can sit and watch the process and just see how it works. We're we're doing the same thing everyone else is, just trying to get our name out there and get some recognition. And we've got some, good sized clients now, and a lot of new people coming on board that are pushing the software, and like I said, they're pushing in directions that we hadn't thought about, which is outstanding. So that's what we look for is, here's a new ICT Tracker customer that's going to allow us to take it to that next level.
That's awesome. I got one more question for you. What do you see as something that kind of excites you about the potential for AR moving forward?
I think the thing you're going to see in AR, you see AR is pretty big when people show little models and this and that, but AR is going to stabilize. The issue AR has right now is because of the size of the models. It has a little issues with stability. That's going to improve, and I think you're seeing a lot with model compression. I mean, we're seeing with a bunch of different people, we're dealing with model compression, and if that improves, you're going to be able to see bigger models in AR with more information that's more stable, that we can actually, the funny thing is, people, well, AR can be, I heard one of the other AR software saying, well, we're plus or minus 1/8 inch. I said, well, that's amazing. The field's not plus or minus 1/8 inch. So how can it be plus or minus 1/8 inch? Okay. I said, construction would die to be plus or minus 1/2 inch sometimes. Okay. So that's, I think, kind of one of the fallacies people are going to struggle with AR is the fact that it'll never be this perfect relay because the field's not perfect. The model's perfect. So, but it's like every technology. It's such a hot technology. So many people are looking at it. It's growing in leaps and bounds. We're seeing all these different AR software development companies out there too, which is just going to continue to improve the process. That's all what everyone's looking for is continuous improvement. And you already have AR on your iPhone, but you're going to have a higher level of AR on your little phones pretty soon. And, just different ways of looking at it. I mean, there's just so many, just basic lifetime things we do in our life every day that AR could simplify and help with. Construction just is one that it's more than a visualization tool. And that's what always drove me crazy. Just to look up and say it's there, that doesn't do anything for me. Okay. And to me, eventually it's going to be more interactive with how people do their day-to-day jobs and business. You think about service techs that are out there, you've already seen some applications where people out there and they look in their AR and they see the tool or product they're working on, and here's the virtual model, and here's all the information associated with it. That's the kind of stuff that's really, going to take the next step in construction. That the applications are endless. We got so many smart people out here that keep on challenging it. I think it's just going to continue to grow.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining the show and giving us your insights and perspective on the industry.
Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to those listening. If you are interested in learning any more, you can for sure visit ICT Tracker, or you can visit our sponsor, Applied Software, at ASTI.com for any more information. You can listen anytime to this podcast by simply going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to check out our website, bridgingthegappod.com. Until next time, I'm Todd Wyant, thanking you for joining us on the Bridging the Gap podcast. Keep innovating.